Biblical expressions of grief that give us hope. This YouTube series and the book, All About Grief, is shared with the hope that we can help everybody navigate their way through the inevitable journey we'll face all of us from death through grief and mourning, and into that journey some practical thoughts and insights. My heart is to bring comfort to those of you who are mourning and to equip all of us who want to care. And forgive me, but please don't miss an episode. Just hit the subscribe button and you'll get alert. And maybe you could add some thoughts to this grief community by jotting something down in the comments box or ask a question. So please do subscribe to join our community. Before we can move into and receive from and apply the promises of God, we need to know that every expression of grief is valid. And we need to know we have permission to grieve and mourn, and that Scripture reveals and affirms both. There's a full list of metaphors from Scripture in the book itself, but I wanted to explore a handful of metaphors in this episode, metaphors that were written by Jeremiah, the psalmists, and Micah. Jeremiah's list includes the following: "See, Lord, how distressed I am. I'm in torment within, and in my heart I'm disturbed. My eyes fail from weeping. I'm in torment within," he repeats. "My heart is poured out on the ground. He pierced my heart with arrows from his quiver. Oh, my anguish, I writhe in pain. Oh, the agony of my heart pounds within me. I cannot keep silent." And he goes on to say, "Pour out your heart like water in the presence of the Lord." The psalmist's list includes: "Darkness is my closest friend. Be merciful to me, Lord, for I'm in distress. My eyes grow weak with sorrow, my soul and my body with grief. My life is consumed by anguish, and my years, by the way, take note, not days, years, by groaning. My heart is blighted and withered like grass. I forget to eat my food. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. I'm worn out from my groaning. All night long I flood my bed with weeping, and I drench my couch with tears." Talks about the cords of death, the anguish of the grave. Micah includes these metaphors: "Because of this I will weep and wail. I will go about barefoot and naked. I will howl like a jackal. I will moan like an owl." If I summarize these few scriptures, and there are many more, I think we get the picture that the Bible acknowledges the reality of the toll of grief and mourning with brutal honesty. Grief over death pictured as a flood, unceasing, overwhelming, deeply physical. By the way, there's a whole train of thought that is purported to be relatively new. It's called somatic grief. There's a famous book called The Body Holds a Score. It's a good book, by the way, and the concept is a good book. I'm just making the point, it's not new. The psalmist understood that it affected his body as well as his soul. We've just seen the scripture. Sorrow strikes the heart like a weapon, and it's crushing. So mourning is not silence. It can be silent for one or two, but for most, certainly many, it's an anguished outpouring before the compassionate face of God. After loss, we may feel abandoned and wrapped in darkness or shadow. And the point I'm making is Scripture does not hide this truth. Scripture expects this to be the case. And biblical grief then is not restrained. It's often loud, physical, weeping, howling, groaning, shouting, and openly expressed. I'll never forget the moment. A close friend of mine I was sharing some deep grief issues, and suddenly I was overwhelmed and I let out this anguished howl. And my friend was deeply distressed by it. He said, "That sounds demonic." Well, you can understand that didn't help me a great deal. Of course it wasn't demonic. It was biblical. These verses show personal cry to God or communal cry to God. They show God's people crying out in despair to God, not hidden away from him, not hiding from others in their community. Jill and I were doing an All About Heaven event at a large camp in France called Destiny. And I don't know how many there were. It might have been a couple of hundred, certainly in the 20s, of people at the end who wanted prayer. Again, not about heaven, but about their lost loved ones. And I'll never forget the moment this little French pastor, little in stature, came over to Jill and me. He said, "I don't know what to do. I have a woman, she will not stop crying. How long do I leave her to cry?" Well, you know what my answer was going to be. In fact, it was Jill's answer. She said, "As long as it takes." Isn't it precious that this woman feels safe enough to weep with her church family? Grief, as I mentioned just now, is somatic. The body really does hold the score. Bereavement saps the body and the soul. And grief includes physical, somatic symptoms: collapse, exhaustion, failing sight, weakness of limbs, and it consumes our life. It really does take years. 7 years on, Jill and I still feel it. Yesterday, Jill was at a funeral, and someone who hadn't heard our news, hadn't seen us in a decade or more, said to Jill, "How's your wonderful son Joel doing?" 7 years on, Jill had to take herself outside and deal with the grief. Grief causes wounding or internal damage as sharp as physical pain. But here's the hope-filled narrative. The overarching backdrop to death, dying, grief and mourning is that the Bible speaks about it, faces it head on, validates all the varying experiences of grief that different individuals have. And whatever our individual experiences, to help us navigate the future, the Bible not only faces death, grief and mourning with pragmatic, brutal reality, but also gives us promises to lean into, promises to stand on, and promises that help us navigate on our journey to still waters and green pastures. We explored in one earlier episode, Jesus did say, "Blessed are those who mourn," but those words from Matthew are not a silver bullet. They're not a magic pill that somehow can be given to anybody who's grieving to expect daily, hourly comfort in some kind of calibrated way. This blessing, real as it is, doesn't take away grief. Can I encourage you, if you haven't done it, hit the subscribe button, maybe give us a thumbs up so that others can find this content. If you've got any thoughts or questions, do comment on the video. And if you found it helpful, please do consider sharing the link with family or friends or neighbours.